Okay, we're good to go?
I think we're good to go. I see a red dot.
I see a red.
I see it.
No, on the other one.
Yeah, we're
Ken.
recording now, Ken.
We are recording, Ken.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Broker Loaded Podcast. I'm Kurt Studley. I'm a realtor.
And I'm Dan Grimes. I'm a broker.
Yeah. We have, Danny, this is so exciting. So exciting for this episode.
I have been waiting for this one for over a month.
We have a guest on the podcast.
The GOAT.
Right? The greatest of all time. He's lawyer Ken Hoyt.
Ken Hoyt.
Hello, Ken.
Hi, guys.
How are
How
you?
you doing?
Good.
We're going to give Ken maybe a little tutorial as we're going to speak into the mic like I had to learn.
Yeah.
Right in
Yeah.
here.
Yeah.
He'll be just fine.
So, Ken, when I referred as the GOAT, Ken, so I'm in my 40th year, and I think there's really...
Not on the planet.
Not on the planet, no.
In real estate, is that what you mean?
Yes.
Okay, good.
Year 40. Year 40.
Good for you.
1982.
That's crazy.
I know, it's
Good
nuts.
for you.
It's nuts. No fax machines.
Okay, enough about
Yeah.
you. Let's
No
concentrate on our guest.
That's right. But when I got into the business and I was taking the course, you know, you're looking for people to send deals, to build relationships.
Sure.
That's with Grimes Realty. It was a property management firm on Frank Street. But the three names that were prominent when I got in my first few years were certainly our guest, Ken, today, and Robillard Farber, just because you tended to meet Izzy because he was
Teaching the course.
teaching the course,
Yeah.
and then John was teaching the course.
That's right.
And
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
And I think anybody with over 15 or 20 years experience in the business, certainly over 20, if you talked about, give me 5 names of 5 lawyers in town,
Right.
I think Robillard, Farber, and Ken are going to certainly end up in the top.
Absolutely.
I
Those
think
are
that-
certainly, I came to Ottawa in 2000 and bought my first house shortly after that, and those names are all familiar to me.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And
Plus, I've seen Ken on various tutorials he provides once in a while for
which should
realtors.
be mentioned. He
Fantastic.
does a lot of seminars
Yeah.
and public speaking on the topics
Yeah.
They're relating to real estate, one of which he's here for today. And I'll let Ken introduce the legislation because there's a few acronyms that are being used, but there's a lot of changes going on.
Yep. A lot of changes to various parts of the real estate industry, right?
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. This is just one piece of the puzzle. This change. There's lots of others.
So we're here to talk about
The foreign buyer ban, the FBB.
The FBB.
Okay, I've been calling it the foreign buyer legislation.
Well, it is legislation.
It is
It
legislation.
is legislation. Well, let's be clear
Yeah.
on the official name.
Okay.
Shall I get it for
There
you?
is, yes, there's an official name?
Yes, it is. It's called the Prohibition on the Purchase of Residential Property by Non-Canadians.
Oh, so the
that's
FBB.
Yeah, the foreign buyer ban. I mean, no one wants to say
The
that.
prohibition.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
Good-
guess that's
yeah,
the official
prohibition.
government sort of handle
Cocktails are served when they were,
That's
and maybe
right.
cocktails were being served when they wrote this up.
for it. Yeah.
You might have a good point there, Dan.
Yeah. A lot to unpack when it comes to that legislation, the FBB.
Yep, we'll go through it today, and
Yeah.
I'll give you kind of the critical points, what people need to know.
Yeah.
It's not the easiest thing to figure out.
Right.
We're going to see some problems associated with this piece of legislation.
Okay.
There are going to be a lot of people that are not in the know and won't know where to turn.
All right.
Oh, but we do have some good news, which I'll get to later.
So
There's good news.
what should realtors know about this legislation when dealing with a client?
Okay, so first of all, you need to know that it's in effect now as of January 1st. The foreign buyer ban is in effect.
Right.
And what does it essentially say? It says that the only people who can buy residential real estate in Canada are either Canadian citizens or permanent residents or temporary residents. And there are 2 classifications to the there are some more nuances to this, but the 2 main classes of temporary residents are students and people with work permits.
Okay.
And outside of that, you can't, and there are some there's provisions for Indigenous and refugees and things like that as well, but we'll stick to the probably what most of us are going to experience.
Right.
So you can only buy, and this applies to any purchase of a home up to 3 units. So if you're buying a 4-unit, doesn't apply.
Oh, okay.
You're good. And it only applies to towns or villages which exceed 10,000 people.
Yeah, that was a little.
Oh.
I
So-
read that and I wasn't quite clear. They weren't quite clear on it.
Well,
in the
let's
literature I
and
was
here's
reading.
how they define it. Here's some new words. I mean, this is a
Oh, it's Ken said we were going to learn new
Yeah,
words.
new
Oh, yeah,
words.
no,
And
I
here's
know.
one
like
of the
this.
new words. So, 10,000 people above the census agglomeration.
Agglomeration.
Agglomeration, that's AGG, census. So if you're dealing with an area in Canada where the census agglomeration exceeds 10,000, that's an area where it's restricted, where the FBB applies.
I haven't even heard that word in a spelling bee.
Agglomeration, I have to understand that word. Because
It's not abomination.
No, not
it's
abomination.
It's agglomeration. And the second thing is, that's right. We're not talking, the abominations come later.
Right.
The other area is it's census agglomeration or the census metropolitan area.
Oh,
Those are the two things. Which
sounds kind of sexy.
Right.
Right?
Now there is a website where you can actually go, link in, and find out if you're dealing in some remote area and you want to find out whether you've got an FBB problem or not.
Right.
You can go to this, you can get linked in and go to this website and see, and you scroll down and you go, okay, there we are. Vaughan, wow. You know what? I'm okay. I don't know if Vaughan is okay. But
No, probably not.
probably not.
you mean it exceeds 10,000?
Oh, yes.
Oh,
Yeah, okay, there you
Without
go.
a doubt. Let's use Pembroke.
sorry.
Pembroke.
Pembroke.
Oh,
Oh,
Pembroke.
that's a good
okay.
example.
Yeah, okay.
I think they're right on the cusp.
Okay, so so those are the areas that are affected. Anything that exceeds 10,000. Ottawa obviously
Right.
exceeds. We're over 1 million, aren't we?
Yes.
Yeah, I know. Okay, that's cool.
I think
Just
they,
over.
I think they
All right.
included Gatineau in that number. Though. I'm still not.
Did not include Gatineau.
Yeah, I think
You're
they
not allowed to
included
include Gatineau.
Look at.
I think. I think there is something that's Hull for sure, isn't it?
No.
I don't know.
I
No,
don't
it's in
think so.
another province. You can't.
All I know is as a kid, it said 299,000 for 30 years, and now we're at 1 million. Come on.
Just like that.
How
Well,
did
we were
that?
at 800,000, and then it grew overnight to 1 million.
Yes, it did.
Because they extended the boundaries of the city of Ottawa.
Yeah,
It's one
that
of
got
those
us-
cities where you first enter, and then you're driving for another 30 minutes before you see a house.
Bottom line here is, though, anything over 10,000
10,000.
people.
We digress.
It
you
applies.
can't- Yeah, I got it.
He keeps us on
my
track,
job.
Ken.
That's right.
My
Okay.
job on this program.
So if you're dealing in something less than 10,000, you don't have an FBB problem.
Right.
A non-citizen, a non-Canadian can buy.
Okay.
Right? And it applies to up to 3 units. So if you've got anyone buying a 4-unit, 5-unit, 6-unit, that's okay.
So I'm a foreign buyer and I see a nice sixplex downtown and I want to invest in that. I'm open to do that.
You are.
Okay.
You are.
Okay.
So the context of this legislation, let's keep that in mind. This is being introduced because we have a housing shortfall in Canada. We don't
Correct.
have enough homes for Canadian citizens or permanent residents.
No, right across the country, basically.
Right across the country. And we are millions behind.
Right.
And it's not going to get fixed anytime soon. So COVID certainly introduced this as being a significant problem. Huge, huge. So this is the federal government's attempt to try and correct that situation to some extent.
Right.
And make sure that the homes that we do have that are available for sale, for purchase, are reserved for those that are Canadian citizens or permanent residents or those with temporary visas that qualify.
Right.
And so rural areas where there's perhaps not a huge demand, anything less than 10,000,
Right.
up for grabs for everybody.
Okay.
That's fair.
It's only been in effect since January 1st of this year.
Correct.
So I guess there's no measuring stick quite yet as to if its effectiveness or not.
No, you're quite right, Kurt. And actually, I have not dealt with anyone in this falling into this. Me personally, the other 2 lawyers in my firm have had to deal with this. So let's get into some of the tricky bits. And the tricky bits come into what qualifies for someone who has a temporary status, the student or the work permit. And this is where it becomes difficult for people to know whether they qualify or not. And here is what I want to tell you. Let me describe this. So if you're a student and you want to buy a piece of property, here's what you have to be able to show: that you have filed the required income tax returns under the Income Tax Act for each of the 5 taxation years preceding the year in which you want to make the purchase.
5 years.
5 years.
Okay.
That you were physically present in Canada for a minimum of 244 days in each of those 5 calendar years preceding the year in which you're purchasing.
So, Ken, this is Canadian CRA income tax.
Yes, that's right. That's
so
right.
It doesn't apply. An American student who comes up here.
Yeah, you're working here. You're
Right.
on a. That's
Living
right.
So
here,
2 years of
filing
returns here and
taxes here.
3 years in the U.S. doesn't count.
No, 5 years
5 years.
here.
That's
So-
important. That's important
So
to know.
students often, when they come here as students, also can work
Right.
at the same time, and that's what's being talked about. And the purchase price of the property cannot exceed $500,000.
Oh,
So that's the student one.
Really?
wow.
Yeah.
I hope realtors are listening to this, because this is, man, I didn't know this stuff,
me
and I've
neither.
tried to do enough reading on it. Without
And-
a doubt.
and-
Realtors around the world are listening to this right now.
And here's the other thing. And you can only be purchasing one property. You only get one. You can't
Okay.
buy two.
Okay.
Okay. Now, for the work permit, here's what you have to show. You've worked in Canada for a minimum period of 3 years within the 4 years preceding the year in which your purchase is being made.
Okay.
And if the work is full-time, that which is defined as 30 hours per week.
Right.
I think it is trying to suggest the work. I'm not sure if the work has to be full-time. They've worked, if the work is full-time. Question mark on that. It's poorly worded here. They've filed all their tax returns for a minimum of 3 out of the 4 taxation years. And they're not purchasing more than one residential property, and doesn't seem to be a limit on the purchase price of $500,000.
Okay.
So the one thing for the students, they had, was it 200, they had to reside here for 200
Physically be present in
for 244 days?
each year.
Okay.
In each of the 5 calendar years.
But it doesn't mention this for a full-time worker.
No.
So then how would that affect, or do we know, like the migrant workers? Like the strawberry farms out here, where the migrant workers come in and they work for 6 months of the year.
Right.
Every year. They've done it for 5 years, but they're only here for 6 months. I wonder if because that's a noticeable difference. The students have to be here for 200
Yeah, and
because most students would go back to their home country.
and so that's why.
Makes
so
sense?
here's
Or am I
it
off?
does, and maybe see, and that's why, it's a good question, Dan. I'm sure you're going to come up with some more good questions too.
Only if you know the answers, Ken. Only if you know the answers.
That's right. They worked in Canada. So here's how it says. They worked in Canada for a minimum period of 3 years within the 4 years preceding the year in which the purchase was made.
Yeah.
If the work is full-time work as defined in subsection 73(1) of the Immigration and Refugee Protection Regulations. So if the work is full-time,
That's where you'll find the answer. There's probably a minimum hours per year
Well, it
to
says
qualify
30.
for full-time.
well, full-time is defined as 30 hours per
hours.
week. So here's an interesting question. What about a hockey player, for example? This question was actually put to me.
Oh, that's a good question.
What about a hockey player? Because, are they considered full-time? I mean, they're on the ice for 5 minutes?
Well,
Yeah.
some of them more than that, Ken.
But okay, even a half an hour. So I'm just
Half an hour is too
I'm just
much.
joking. I'm
Well,
just joking.
Shabbat's going to be down to 5 or 10 minutes if he doesn't pick it up next year.
So I'm just kidding. Like, how do they define? It's not a serious question, but yeah.
Right, but that's a good example of someone who is a seasonal worker in many
Yeah.
cases.
So your point about seasonal worker, yes. And so this is part of the difficulty I think that people are going to have, buyers, to figure out whether or not they qualify. Now, CREA has come out with a form to sort of protect agents and brokers.
Mostly agents.
Actually, agents, an American term. We can call
sales
Kurt now. We're realtor now.
A realtor?
Realtor.
Okay.
We were
I like
never
that.
allowed to use that.
I like that.
When was a
Realtor.
couple of years, few years? Last
Anyway.
year.
Anyway, so there's now they've come out with some forms that realtors can now ask the purchasers to sign, whereby the purchaser is stating that they comply with the regulations,
Right.
and that they are legitimate buyers of property.
A declaration?
It's a bit of it's a declaration. There's also one for corporations, because this piece of the FBB legislation restricts corporations from buying. So if more than 3% is owned by a foreign individual, then the corporation can't do it. It has to be incorporated in Canada. Oh yeah. So there's lots of stuff. And they've also made it clear in the legislation that if someone was trying to buy a property through someone who is a Canadian citizen or a permanent resident, and then hold that property in trust for them, that is offside as well. If someone is holding a property in trust for somebody, then the person there's a trustee and a beneficial owner. So the non-Canadians would be the beneficial owners, and that is considered to be a purchase as well.
Hey, if you're just joining us, you're watching the Broker Loaded podcast, or listening to it, probably listening to it and not watching it. Our guest today, our first guest on the program, is Ken Hoyt, a longtime lawyer, real estate lawyer here in the nation's capital. He's Dan Grimes. I'm Kurt Studley, just so you know.
And that's Ken Hoyt.
Yeah, Ken Hoyt.
Of course.
I said, didn't I?
Yeah, you did.
You did.
Yeah, I did.
You did.
Let's
You did a great
say it
job.
again. The GOAT. The
GOAT.
greatest of all
Of
time.
all time. We've only used that reference once in previous episodes.
It's true.
It's true.
It's true.
Yeah. Marilyn Wilson.
This seems, if you take just sort of a glancing look at this legislation, there seem to be plenty of restrictions here.
For sure. And I think part of the difficulty is figuring out, not everyone will necessarily fall neatly within the definitions that I've described here, and there will be problems for buyers. Buyers now coming to realtors saying, gee, here's my set of circumstances. Can I buy? And I think the realtor will say, I have no idea, perhaps. Or if they're smart, the realtor would say, I'm not sure. Let's get a legal opinion, right?
Well, I'll say call Ken Hoyt. I'll see if
Ken
I can
Hoyt.
get him. I don't have his cell number yet.
What? You'll have it by the end of the show. It happens every time.
We will. And if I get it, ribs are up next time we're all together.
Oh, see?
What is that?
Beef ribs.
Oh, okay, nice.
Yeah, the
Nice.
beef ribs are, I don't know what he does, but oh man.
I'm interested. I'm a bit of a meat man myself.
Are you?
A grill master.
I was
Yeah.
grilling last night, some beautiful steaks last night for the first time this spring.
That's one of my secret dishes, actually.
Charcoal or propane?
Are you kidding me?
Oh, I shouldn't have
What
even
kind
asked.
of question is that?
Okay, I just...
Yeah, really.
Like
Some
I got a
amateurs
gas
are
line.
still on
I got a
propane.
gas line hooked up to my house. No, charcoal.
Of course.
Of course. Green egg?
No, the red one.
Oh, okay.
Kamado
Really?
Joe.
Kamado
Kamado
Joe.
Joe.
Yeah.
I've got a green egg.
Oh, I know where you got that one.
Wow.
I
Yeah,
just
Catholic.
My
remember.
good friend Steph Ligari.
He
Okay.
is.
Yeah.
He's working at the
Grilling
barbecue center now.
Gourmet. I know.
Okay.
He's holding classes and doing demos and stuff.
Did you know that?
I didn't.
Yeah, he's back there and doing some other things too.
he's
I think
got,
he's doing a thing at Algonquin College.
His
now.
first one's Saturday.
This
And it's a
Saturday.
beauty. Okay,
Nice.
we digress.
We
But
digress.
Just back to
There is some good news, though.
back to a comment that you made.
We're talking about the FBB, by the way, the
FBB.
foreign buyers ban.
Okay.
Foreign buyer ban.
So here's the point. Yeah. So the realtors don't want to give opinions, because the last thing you want to do is waste everybody's time doing up an agreement of purchase and sale, putting it forward.
Right.
And
And you shouldn't be talking about stuff you don't know anyway.
and then you find out that your buyer can't actually legally buy. And let's also be clear that anyone, realtors, lawyers, mortgage brokers, anyone that is facilitating the purchase of a property by a non-Canadian is liable up to $10,000 for committing that
You don't want to do
wrongdoing.
You don't want to do that.
No, you don't. So there's a bit on the line here. So people, I suspect realtors would say, you know what, go get a legal opinion. The problem with getting the legal opinion is we don't know all the ins and outs of this necessarily
Hold the
either.
mic up there. There you
Okay, so that's the good news.
Yes.
Okay, I have one question though. 'Cause
no,
I'll-
hear the good news first, because
Okay.
this is
Let's hear the good news.
the good news is
I
that
have
to remember 2 words in my head.
You're
though.
getting
Okay.
that. You're getting
Okay,
that
here's the
glazed look in your eye, like the last time you were in
Guys,
court
here's-
listening to a
here's-
lawyer.
I know it happens all
No,
over.
it was the
Right.
judge actually.
But okay, the good news is that if we are confused,
Right.
we can call Nadine.
Who's Nadine?
Nadine LeBlanc.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Can we give her a number?
Yep, we've got her number.
Okay.
It's 613-748-2198 or an email address. You can call Nadine.
So sorry, Nadine.
But here's my fear. I think Nadine's probably pretty busy because she seems to be the only contact for the country.
Right?
So she's got a lot on her plate.
Yeah.
I think she might be a Siri or whatever. You call her and
No,
it's
I
just
bet
a
you she's
robot.
a real person.
Well, anyway.
Doesn't sound like a government number to me.
Yeah, it does sound like someone that
Sounds like
Maybe
my
they gave out
neighbor.
her home number.
just down the
Gabriel
street.
Pizza.
It could be herself. You know,
Oh, let's load that up, baby.
Nadine got a problem with Section 4 of the FBB. What do you think?
Yeah, just a second. I'm, cooking dinner.
Can we? Yeah.
Poor Nadine.
Poor Nadine. It
Right.
seems a little. Hopefully she's doing well. It's
Bet you she's banking overtime.
well, I can only imagine.
Wow.
But okay, so that's it. That's the FBB.
Okay. The foreign buyers ban is what Ken is referring to. It's got a long political type name, but
So okay, here's some other things. It doesn't apply to vacant land. No kidding, because it's all about houses.
Right.
Yeah.
Or it doesn't apply to rentals if you want to rent. If
you
you're a
can still rent.
non-Canadian,
You can still rent. Oh, thank
because
you.
It's about ownership, which
So
is
then all those vacant units, because this was predominantly started being talked about, and the concern was out in BC.
yeah, BC. That's right.
BC was the one where you had a lot of the foreign investors coming in, buying up all of the condominiums or a greater percentage of condominiums and
Yeah.
leaving them vacant.
yeah.
Now we get into the VUT.
We're not going to get into
I know,
that.
but that's the vacant unit thing.
I know, but it seems that both issues were originated out in the West Coast.
Yeah, I'm not sure about the foreign buyer ban, but certainly the vacant unit thing originated, I think, back in the 2014, 2016.
Yeah.
That's when Vancouver thought that their market was being taken over by foreign investors.
Yeah.
It's a bit of a red herring, in my opinion. The percentages are not as significant as what everyone
I never
believed them to
thought-
be. No, because guess what the real problem is? The real problem is not enough homes are being built.
That's the real problem.
That's the real problem. And whose fault is that?
Well,
Those are our provincial planning,
Yep.
governments, all of that kind of stuff.
that's
right?
why we've been hearing so much talk about fast tracking.
Correct.
Yeah, and it
That's-
coincides with, we're a country that accepts a lot of people from around the world.
Yeah.
But nobody took into account what kind of numbers that would mean when it came to housing. And, everybody who comes to this country, like everybody who lives in this country, deserves a place to live.
And
And
that's sort of the
attaining that-
Canadian dream.
Yeah, and attaining that is becoming more and more
absolutely, and it's
difficult.
one of the beautiful things about this country that we open our doors. It's coming up to 500,000 new people coming in every year.
Yeah.
That's the lifeblood of this country.
Right.
It really is.
That's how it started anyway.
Exactly. But and unfortunately, we don't have enough homes for people who already live here.
Let
Never
alone-
mind the
yeah.
500,000 people coming in with expectations of doing the same.
Yeah.
Well, Ken, you'll remember a time when it was unheard of, and it's been, I'm going to say 2.5 decades, maybe 3 decades. You never used to see new apartment buildings being built, ever.
That's right.
Trudeau, the immigration ad, like in 71 or 72, kind of opened the doors to immigration.
Yeah.
And now,
Well,
I'd say over the last 3 or 4 years, like Le Pen is a leader, or Le Pen.
Yeah.
They're a
Lepine
leader.
Apartments.
However you want to
Yeah,
pronounce
you
their
are
name.
seeing
but
apartment buildings.
now
being
you
built,
are
yeah.
seeing apartments because there are people and investors know, okay, well, let's build because we do have people that can fill these properties.
Even the downtown core, like I worked downtown for the first 14 years I was in Ottawa from 2000 on. The development of those high-rise buildings downtown, that all happened within the last 20 years, right?
Yeah.
So, we're seeing that sort of infill when it comes to apartments, but there's still a lack of affordable housing.
A lot of
There's no
those were
question about that.
condos. That a lot of people drive by. You drive by buildings on the driveway, Ken. A lot of people assume those are rentals, but they're not. They've been they've been
it's been a
condos since the
long
day they
time
were
since
built.
we've seen actual rental apartment buildings being built. That's
And
right.
now they are. I mean, not at the rate, obviously, that's required. But
Some of them end up being rentals.
But again,
yeah.
there's you've got rental versus home ownership, and a lot of people set their sights on owning their own home.
Oh, for sure.
For a lot of people, that's
That's where they want to be,
right?
and and we just don't have that. That's just in short supply, and will be for a long time in this country.
Okay, so I'm going to go. I just want to quickly go back because we're going to end up moving on to what realtors and how realtors should be handling different situations here. So I want to go back to the trustee beneficiary thing. And in fairness, we did talk about this and what to maybe not, discuss openly. So I'm going to tread water lightly here. But as realtors, if somebody has a discussion with us,
Wait a second.
okay.
It's impossible to tread water lightly.
Okay.
Anyway.
Well, no, it is
Tread lightly.
Actually, Ken opened the door to the discussion because he used
Just tread lightly. Don't tread water lightly. If you're treading water, do it full,
Full on, eh?
right?
'Cause
Not lightly.
Good point. I
do
misspoke.
you get to do the bell?
That's
Okay,
definitely a bell
That's a
ringer,
bell.
that one.
That's a bell for I'm in detention, and he made a good point.
Okay,
I'll
so
give him that.
getting back to your point.
So let's say as a realtor, you come to me
Yes.
and you say, I have a client, a buyer,
Yes.
and their son is living here, going to school here, and he
Yes.
qualifies to buy. And then that other realtor goes, but he's really the intent is to buy for the parents.
Ooh.
What response you step back from that conversation?
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah, for sure. I wouldn't say anything till I knew the exact answer.
Yeah. Well, I know the exact answer because a lawyer earlier today said, just be very careful because if that transaction proceeds and it becomes known that you had knowledge that this was, I don't know what term I want to use to refer to it because I'm treading lightly.
Right.
But if it is a topic that comes up with the discussion with a buyer, I think it would be best to seek advice.
No, you pick up the bat phone to Ken's office is what you do.
That's
Yeah.
right. That's right.
Yeah, because
Yeah.
you can't.
So the answer. So if
Well, you
someone-
have knowledge going forward that it's kind of
right. So if a buyer came up and said, "Look, I'm a non-Canadian. I can't buy," or no,
Right.
I am a citizen,
right.
or a permanent resident, and I want to buy a property which is going to for my parents who are not Canadian citizens or permanent residents. So I'm going to buy it for them.
Correct.
And I am going to hold that in trust for them. And when, they're going to come over here or whatever at some point, and then at some point I will transfer the property into their names. And it could be that the parents are providing the money
Right.
for this purchase.
Right.
So I think your first reaction to that would be that's prohibited under the FBB. the foreign
But
buyer.
that's why I brought it up, and I'm glad we're talking about it, because realtors would not know that,
Right. So
and they should.
yeah, you can't. Right. You might think, oh, okay, no problem with that. You're a citizen, sure, and you can do with that property whatever you like. But nope, you have to be on guard in that situation. That
Okay.
is technically offside.
Right.
And if discovered, if it was ever unwound that this was a trustee beneficial owner situation, and that you facilitated it as a realtor, you could find yourself
In hot water.
liable for
In hot water.
Right.
Yeah,
That's
treading
right.
lightly.
Right. Treading lightly or treading heavily. Yeah. So
Which I didn't. I mean, I've learned a lot today. I didn't
and lawyers
Seriously, I
lawyers
didn't
would
know
have
that.
the same issue. So typically in a trust situation like that, there would be a trust declaration. There would be something on paper to protect the parents that, yes, my son or daughter is holding this property in trust for me, so that in the event of death, it would be clear as to who is the actual beneficial owner. But those things are offside. You can't do that kind of paperwork because you can't have that situation.
So you
according
wouldn't
to
want,
the FBB.
and if you were, you wouldn't want any email correspondence, any texting correspondence
No.
that could lead back. You just should
until you
not
knew
do
exactly where
Yeah.
you. Yeah.
It. And if you're a
Yeah.
realtor listening to this portion of the podcast, go ahead and talk to your broker. But I know as a fact, 80% of the brokers in this city today would not know that unless they've gone to a seminar or unless they've talked and gotten legal advice of what their realtor should do and handle it, like somebody like Ken, without a doubt.
And back to the CREA form. So you've got your buyers now. So as realtors, you might, so someone says, I think I qualify because I'm a temporary visa permit, got a temporary permit. I'm a student.
Use that thing.
Oh yeah, right. Okay. Yeah. No stand, eh?
Yeah, we have it. We have one right
We have
there.
one
but
there.
they're
Oh,
right,
okay. No one
occupied.
likes.
Next
yeah,
time.
because you could just bring that
It's
over.
more casual.
Yeah, it is more casual.
casual.
We need to upgrade.
Yeah. Well.
Oh, jeez.
I'm a microphone newbie kind of thing. Anyway, so the CREA form. So you might say, okay, well, you know what? Here, have a look at this. This is you, the realtor, speaking to your buyer. Have a look at this and sign off saying that you qualify as a buyer. But you're making an assumption about how much the buyer knows about these regulations and whether they've drilled down and have figured it all out. And I don't think you can actually go there. The only but that you're actually saving there is your own, that you'd have something to turn to and said, well, he told me he was okay.
Yeah.
But I don't think that cuts it. I think you have an obligation to say, nope, let's get an opinion. I don't want to be working with you. We shouldn't be working with anybody until we're wasting sellers' times. And you're starting to see now on the agreements of purchase and sale that sellers are worried about this issue, because who wants to sell their place only to discover 2 weeks before closing that, hey, the guy can't get a mortgage
He can't
because
close.
somewhere along the line someone has asked the question about
And 45 days have gone by since you actually sold
correct
it. Right?
correct. So sellers are now wanting to see verification. They want declarations, purchase or buyer warranting that they are qualified, or they comply with the FBB, they can legally purchase. I can see probably sellers wanting to see copies of passports or principal residence cards, those types of things to confirm. And I think, Dan, you and I were talking the other day, if you're a seller and you've got two offers, competing offers, and one might be
one offer is from Seamus O'Reilly. Okay.
right.
The other one is from Scotty McIntosh.
Mm-hmm.
And the other one is obviously from a foreign buyer.
Yeah.
And all offers are equal. Like when we were going through COVID, when we were getting 10 or 12 offers. But in this particular example that we use back and forth, you've got your responsibilities to your seller. And you know that one, you're going to be dealing with a declaration, which is another question. When should that declaration,
When should that appear?
What is the
Right.
business practice today? But I know if I have those three offers, I'm going to deal likely with one of the first two and not the one that has to deal with the declaration or providing proof that that's my job. I'm representing the seller.
And you want to avoid any unnecessary risks.
And we talked, that could lead down the road. That could lead to, that's really skirting the line on discrimination.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think.
Well, but a legitimate question. I think sellers would be absolutely.
Well, and I think realtors should be informed.
You're bound to protect your client, right? So, wouldn't you investigate something like that if there was some kind of red flag?
Well, and I brought that up at a NAREA seminar, and they didn't answer my question. And in fairness to them, it was about a month and a half ago, and we're just learning a lot more about it in the last week.
Right.
With the forms coming out, on a lot of the new forms are being provided over the next couple of weeks as well.
What?
Yeah.
New forms?
New forms.
What an outrage.
Yeah, we don't have enough new forms.
Guy. Everyone loves a good form.
Oh, jeez. Yeah.
I love a good form.
I like finding them.
So, Ken,
There's
right
some
now...
satisfaction in getting the right one.
Yeah, there's too many forms.
No.
But in practice right now, what should a realtor, in your opinion, how should a realtor be handling that agreement that they received today? Just one agreement from somebody dealing with the foreign buyer ban. And what is the business practice for you as a lawyer? When is that declaration generally signed? With a closing, let's say it's a 60-day
what
closing.
What declaration are you talking
Well,
about?
the paper, the proof.
There is none currently.
There isn't.
But we were told that something had to be signed, would be signed with the lawyers. Something is signed.
Okay.
Okay, well, you're laughing. This is right out of the mouth of Aria, whoever the woman was, teaching all of us this.
I don't know.
You don't know of anything?
No.
Okay.
So we get two pieces of ID.
Well, what?
No, there's no special declaration.
Not yet.
Not yet. I mean, so we get two pieces of ID when I'm representing a buyer. And the two preferred pieces of ID are passport or permanent resident card. And yeah, those are the two, or driver's license.
So, well, you get ID from anybody, eh?
Right. So that's what we would expect from our buyers at this point in time. And so it's a good question. Ken, have you changed your method of doing anything? Do you kind of, in your initial conversation with your buyer, do you say, hey, hope you're not caught by the FBB?
Right.
What's your status? A citizen, permanent resident? We do, in my practice, I have a first meeting with my buyers once the deal goes firm. It's a virtual meeting. It takes about 30 minutes, and I go through everything. And that's when I talk about citizenship or permanent resident status.
Okay.
And so far, I haven't had someone say, well, I'm neither of those, because if they did, I would then say, okay, we might have a situation here because you have to be legally permitted to buy a home in Canada now, and either you're a citizen, permanent resident, or you've got a temporary.
So then, just to clarify it, there's nothing within the legal community that you're required to have a buyer, a potential foreign buyer, sign at your office.
Right.
Okay.
No.
So then it comes back to the realtor.
And that's why we're seeing agreements.
As FinTrack does, as the HST.
And we're seeing clauses now being put in, sellers insisting
into
on
clauses
into an agreement of purchase and sale where the buyer warrants that they're either a Canadian citizen, that they are not a non-Canadian.
Right.
Okay.
Right. But hey, keep in mind that if you're buying in a place with less than 10,000 people, you don't have to worry about this.
Or a farm.
Or I think a farm? I think farm. Yeah, I think you're right. I think you're right on farm.
Well, I just took a shot at it.
You might be right on farm.
I wasn't. I just
it's
figured
residential, and
if you buy a farm, in a community in a community of under 10,000 people.
But you
right?
You can have a farm that's within the jurisdiction.
Of course you can.
Of course.
Metcalf can.
Yeah, there you go. There you go.
Metcalf.
Can you buy a farm? I think you might be able to, because it has to have a certain zoning, which is the residential zoning, and farms probably wouldn't. So you probably are okay on that.
Because there are a lot of foreign buyers who buy our farmland.
That's
our
quite
farms.
true.
Very true.
That's
Yeah.
very true.
Yeah, it is.
But that's about it.
Can we close the door on the FBB for the moment?
Yeah.
Because I'd like to move on to another topic. We're
Okay.
This is going to be our longest podcast ever.
Yeah. Well.
Yeah, I'm slow.
You guys are going to edit it.
Well,
a
there's
bit,
so much
right?
more.
No, we're not.
Get
We're not.
into.
No,
We don't edit
we
it,
don't
no.
edit. You burp, fart, or throw up, and that's when we edit.
Okay. Good.
We might have to edit that.
Our
Yeah.
guest today, our first ever guest on the Broker Loaded podcast,
Yeah.
is Ken Hoyt, lawyer, real estate lawyer, all around good guy. He's Dan Grimes, broker. I'm Kurt Studley, realtor, and this is the Broker Loaded podcast. I like to throw in station identification here and there. It's just in my blood, if you know what I mean.
And you can find us on all podcast platforms.
Well, yeah, there's that.
YouTube channel, Facebook.
Yeah. Well, you give all our contact
Everywhere.
info and stuff at the end, but we're
It's
going to
all
move
been,
on.
all of our contact info.
Yeah, we're going to, is it all there? Well, you're a genius. You're
Well,
a
it's
genius.
not yet, but
Yeah.
it will be by Saturday
But it
morning.
is when people are watching it.
Okay, what else do we
Danny.
have? What do I have up there?
I want to talk about the vacant unit tax.
Oh, the VUT.
Can we move on to the VUT?
What the VUT are we going to talk about?
What do
vacant unit
What do you
tax.
mean?
What do you mean? I came here for the roast beast.
You want to? Okay, I'm gonna bail out of this conversation.
Yeah,
No,
I don't
you know
find
what,
any
Kurt,
humor in it.
I think that should be a future topic.
A very short
Future
one.
topic?
A very short one. Yeah.
Like that's possible.
Well, is there anything?
Have
good
you
to
listened
say
to
about it?
yourself?
Yeah, I don't. I mean, it's just it's another.
We could. Oh, common,
it's kind of-
common realtor mistakes.
Okay.
See, did you see what was up there?
Yeah, those are featured.
Common realtor mistakes from
I'm
the
sorry, I
eyes.
didn't follow the
from
order
the
you
eyes
said.
of the goat,
That's right.
Ken Hoyt.
That's a good 45-minute discussion.
I'm
Okay.
just here for the free meals, people.
Okay, well then we can wrap this
is it
up
free
in
meal?
5
Well, there
minutes.
should have
Then
been.
let's just highlight, Ken, right off the top of your head, common realtor mistakes that you see, and it will be another 45 minutes to an
What's-
hour. But is there anything right when you go? Okay, Grimes, he just he just emailed me. Yeah, okay. Oh, I can't. Jesus, I can't believe that. What makes you do not another one? I can't believe the realtor actually. Is there anything?
I always forget about that end of things, right? You send it off, and then you're
Yeah.
kind of your.
I'm horrible
It's in
for
a different place.
my own signatures. I seem
Yeah.
to be.
Okay, so what would I say most common
Yeah.
realtor mistakes?
Don't say getting into the business.
Where do I where do I begin? Not working full time.
Right.
Oh, buddy,
Whoa, here comes a can of worms.
right up my
Lid just
alley.
came off that.
Here's what I want to say.
Especially as of April
I would
1st.
say the most common serious
Yes.
realtor mistake that I see are realtors that dabble in multifamily residential and they don't know enough about that area.
Oh,
really?
Good point.
Oh yeah,
That's a good
because
one.
you've got zoning, whether it complies with zoning, you've got fire code issues, and sometimes those agreements don't say anything about those issues, especially fire code.
You know, that is total negligence if you don't have
if
anything
you-
about the
but
fire
I can
code.
understand why it happens. You know, you've worked well with somebody, you've bought them a principal, their primary residence, and now they're coming back to you, Kurt, couple of days or years later, and they're saying, "Hey, it's time for an investment property." And Kurt, you're saying, "Of course it is.
Right.
What do you guys want?" "Well, find us a duplex, find us a triplex," and off Kurt goes to try and do that, not knowing the pitfalls or the mistakes that can be made with multifamily. So
Well, since we're on the topic,
The fire code is a big one.
fire code's a
in the
big one.
Richmond
Yep,
thing.
and we can certainly
if-
have conversations about how to protect
here's
yourself.
here's some great information
Yeah.
for people in that business and realtors like myself. Let's say a realtor you might know, had an upcoming property in downtown Ottawa, maybe on Bay Street, for example, where it's got a basement dwelling with a separate entrance and a rented upper 2 floors, like the main part of the house is rented.
So perfect for owner occupancy as well.
Could be owner occupied, but it's currently leased upstairs. There's going to be a vacant unit downstairs. What are some things, if I'm the listing agent, for example, that I should be aware of?
Okay, so before
That's a good one.
So here's what I want to say, because most of the mistakes sometimes happen on the listing side.
Right.
So if you're being asked by someone to list, let's say, a 3-unit apartment dwelling, okay, a triplex.
Okay.
What due diligence do you do as the listing agent to confirm that it's actually legally, as far as the city is concerned, a legal triplex? Do you just take the guy's word for it? So do you ask simply, how long have you been renting these? Well, I've owned the place for 25 years and it's always been a 3-unit. Yeah, it's a triplex, right?
Yeah.
And that's what I thought I bought 25 years ago or 30 years ago.
Right.
Can you take it at face value? You can't.
No.
You can't. What ought you to do? You should order a zoning compliance report from the City of Ottawa, either through the lawyer that's going to be representing the seller, to get the city to confirm that as far as their records show, it's a legal triplex. Because what might have been done 30, 35 years ago is a duplex was the legal use at the time. And then at some point in the distant past, someone created a 3rd unit in the basement without the benefit of a building permit.
Right.
And that's the issue.
And that makes it an illegal apartment. Correct.
It makes it, not capital I illegal, but an illegal use. It hasn't been created with the benefit of a building permit, so the city considers it to be a duplex. Now the question becomes, well, gee, Ken, does that mean you can't rent out the 3rd unit? And now you get into the distinction between a permitted use and confirmation of conformity. It could be a permitted use, i.e. the zoning allows 3-unit buildings, which means the city won't make you shut down that 3rd unit if there's a complaint by a neighbor saying, hey, too many people living in that building, want you to go check it out. The city will respond to the complaint, go to the property and say, well, you know what? There's 3 units. What's the zoning, Joe? 3 units. Okay, that's legal. The zoning permits it. But that doesn't get your seller away from the problem that the city considers it to be a duplex, because it doesn't have the building permit creating the 3rd unit. And now you've got a problem with your agreement. So when you are listing this, if to be accurate and avoid a problem on closing, you would be listing this as a legal duplex with, you have to be worried, don't say non-conforming apartment, that's problematic. Mm-hmm. You might want to say with a 3rd unit created without the benefit of a building permit. There you've got it. You've nailed it. You could say illegal unit. Everyone would understand. Granny suite was another way of sort of hinting at the fact that we've got a unit that isn't totally legit.
Okay.
So Ken,
Wow. Okay.
The real estate board won't let you upload a listing if it's not legal.
Right.
You can't call it a secondary.
but agents will do it if they
is off
haven't.
camera and doesn't have a microphone, so it's difficult for her to be heard.
We got the
The real estate board will.
She's still.
okay.
Pina, we can't hear you what you're
Sorry,
saying.
I'm going off camera. Just
Off
for a
camera.
second.
Pina, what Pina?
This is Pina Alessi, broker with Remax Affiliates.
No, the real estate
She's
board,
another goat.
The real estate board, if you upload a listing and because there's a secondary dwelling field right now.
Right.
And if
Yeah.
it's not a legal duplex or a legal unit, they will.
It gets red flagged?
Red flag, and they'll ask you to change it.
Okay.
If it's reported.
No, they will flag it. They will.
Automatically.
Oh, okay.
The auto flag.
So here, I have a couple of questions.
Okay, well, I don't know about that thing,
No,
but that's so as a listing agent, you want to make sure that you are bang on in terms of what the legality of the use is, rather than saying, yep, triplex, and then you get an offer saying, buying a triplex, then of course the buyer's lawyer does a zoning compliance
Just make sure
report.
you're clear what it is in the end, right?
Right. So maybe some way in comments or whatever you might do it, you'd say it's a legal duplex. And then in comments, additional, illegal unit basement apartment without the benefit of a building permit.
So in the case of a triplex, and then we will move on, but this is just based on experience. Can you make the assumption everything's legal on a triplex if there's 4 hydrometers? I know the but I want to hear you answer it. There's a common area meter, and then there's a meter for the 3 other units.
No, you can't.
No, and you can't. And the other tips for anybody, a buyer who's going through, everything will look up and up. And based on my experience, one of the first things most experienced realtors know, or commercial guys that are looking for to deal with this, is the furnace room. When you walk in, the furnace is in the basement. There's a basement unit. When you walk into the furnace room, and this is often the case, if you look up and the kitchen of the ground floor unit is above it, and that furnace room isn't fireproofed,
right?
It's not a legal unit. It is not. It's got to be.
Well, it could.
It's got to be fire rated.
How do you?
Well,
the zoning could allow it.
What might have been way back when created with the benefit of a building permit.
Correct.
And at that time, the fire regulations weren't as robust as they are now.
Okay, well, I'm going back 35 years where it had to be.
That's possible.
Okay, that is.
Because the fire marshal doesn't talk to the zoning people.
No.
Right. So they're two different things. You can still get fire code approval from the fire marshal's office, even though no building permit was issued for the creation of a unit, because the fire marshal is simply concerned about fire safety.
Exactly.
Building permits, that's the city's issue. I'm just worried about things being properly fireproofed for the tenants that live in the building.
We ran into it with a T-bar ceiling in a basement unit.
Okay.
So the kitchen, the stove and the venting, it was just a T-bar ceiling, not drywall.
Right.
And the fire marshal came in and he said, no, because if there's a fire here, it goes right up to the ground floor.
Yeah. And we can talk about fire code because there's lots of ins and outs about that as well. But one of the points I wanted to make about this, which I've now just forgot.
Ken will obviously be a future guest on the show, I sense.
We should have planned to shoot about 5 podcasts today.
Well, okay, but on the
the podcast,
someone's
marathon,
bringing a pizza for one of them.
Yeah, different outfits start appearing, and
that's right. We're gonna have to change up, and do dates. But anyway, okay, good. Enough of the fire code. But no, there was something.
That was one.
On the zoning.
Okay. That was one of our major
common
realtor mistake.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, and here was my point. Not only should realtors who have no experience in multifamily be doing multifamily on their own, so they get someone who is experienced and can give them advice so they don't screw up. Same is true for lawyers.
Oh, absolutely, 100%.
Not every lawyer knows their way around the whole multifamily thing as well.
Right.
So
Good point.
Right.
No.
So you can get poor advice on the lawyer side as well. So it's not just realtors. It's Don't. The bottom line is, don't practice in areas where you don't know what you're doing.
No. Right. Or if you have the opportunity to bring in somebody who knows
That's
somebody.
Right. Exactly.
100%.
Exactly. And I say to realtors all the time, you need help on this, you call me.
Yeah.
You call me. I don't care whether I'm getting the deal or not.
Right.
Just call me. We're all in this together, and we're in this to serve the public
and
who trust
get it right.
And to get it right. There's a lot at stake here, and I'm happy to answer.
And it's so much easier when you get it right.
Yeah.
It's not complicated at all when you get it right.
And no realtor wants a problem on closing.
No. And neither do your sellers or buyers.
So bottom line, the answer to my question is, if a realtor in this group happens to have an upcoming listing on Bay Street, he's going to talk to Ken first. right?
Right.
I've got to hear about the Bay Street story.
Just want to make sure I know what I'm dealing with here.
Okay.
That's the advice.
There's no story. It's true. He's
you
listing
got
it.
one.
He's listing it next week.
I know I said
okay.
hypothetical.
Yeah.
Okay, so you got one.
Yeah,
Have you
it's
got a
coming
zoning
up.
compliance report?
No, I do not.
Ken, is a phone call good enough with the city?
No.
Oh, jeez.
No.
I didn't expect that answer.
No, and I don't think they'll even offer phone call responses.
Okay.
I think they're out of the verbal business. And here's the other issue. When you're buying multifamily, you're the realtor on the buying side, you've got to give enough time to the lawyer representing the buyer to make the inquiries and get the responses. It's 10 business days to get the zoning compliance report back from the city of Ottawa.
So I should order it now? Is that what you're saying?
Before you list.
Yeah.
Because you don't know how to describe this accurately.
No.
Now, what you could do is ask your seller if he's got the reporting letter from the lawyer that represented him when he purchased. But he purchased a long time ago.
Yeah.
Most likely
Well,
he
this is a
doesn't.
special case, so there are some lawyers involved already, so they might have the answer.
They might know. So if they've got a previous zoning compliance report, then you're golden. And you can look at that and make sure it's correct. Okay.
Answer some of my questions.
That is.
All right. Well, guys, I think, what time are we?
Oh, we're an hour.
You know what?
Well, that's not bad. That's only 15, 20 minutes longer
Okay.
than our
Yeah,
average.
that's really good.
Well, you might want to save this bit for the next one, and maybe we'll do it in a more. Yeah, we could talk about the fire code at the same time.
Oh, I don't want to talk about fire code in the podcast. That's a boring topic. We got to get. There's nothing
Dan,
funny
Dan,
about the
Dan.
fire code.
Dan, there's a
You
lot of
can't
people.
crack jokes about the fire code.
Well,
Well, you know, the reason things
Let's
get
put it this
changed is
way.
usually because somebody got burnt to a crisp in the basement.
What we don't have with the fire code, we don't have a Nadine to call.
There's no Nadine?
There's no Nadine.
Oh, no.
I know, and of course,
It's troubling.
right. So, I know, poor Nadine. I hope she doesn't. I don't know if we should. Anyway.
Hope we don't give out her number again.
Well, it's on the download. It's there. It's on the download.
So this is the actual.
Yeah, that's.
Oh, come on.
Call Nadine if you got a problem
This
with
is
the
for the-
FCV.
Foreign
So this
buyers
is
ban.
this is federal legislation.
Yeah, you just pull that. I pulled
Area,
that.
yeah,
Yeah.
area code 613.
Oh, my gosh.
Which is Ottawa's original area code. I guess we're the only city that has a problem. 748-2198. Call Nadine LeBlanc, 613-748-2198. Any realtor who has a concern or any buyer. 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Give her a call.
The bell rang
Okay,
itself
I
there.
know. It's yeah.
Listen, Ken, we're gonna have to
Gonna
get you
wrap it
back.
up?
Yeah,
We're
we're
gonna
gonna
wrap?
we're gonna have to. Yeah, we'll talk about more topics in the future and get you back here for some fun and make sure the beef ribs are actually on the menu.
Okay, beef ribs next time.
Okay, sweet.
But listen, great to have you on.
Yeah,
Hey,
no, it was
So
fabulous.
informative and so fun to talk about and interesting. Like you said, I learned a lot of things I had no idea today.
And I'll tell you,
Right.
we're
And I
three.
might even remember some of them.
We're three of the more educated realtors on the foreign buyer ban now.
Well, there's
You know what I
off-camera
did?
realtor, right? I think there should be an off-camera mic now introduced into the
Yeah,
we can
podcast.
have that.
into the Broker Loaded
you're
podcast.
celebrity
Yeah,
status.
and we could have a special segment called "Here's What Pina Had to Say." That's right. Right, and we
What's
could just
up, Pina?
She'd never see her. You'd never see her on the program.
That's
You'd
a good
never see her on
idea.
the podcast.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
But
That is.
Pina would chime in with commentary at any point, and suddenly. The graphic would come up like the kapow on Batman that says, "Here's what Pina thinks."
Kurt's on a roll here.
Well, she was.
This is going to be
She
good.
didn't hesitate to step in. It wasn't
no.
like she was waving her hand and she
No.
just went, hey, by the way, the real estate board will flag that.
You ever notice that people without microphones tend to talk louder? Anyway,
You mean with the microphone?
Yeah.
no, yeah, well, off. Hey, hey, it's like you get a bad signal on your phone and you talk
Lady.
louder.
And I do have. It's
You
a
imagine
4
Pina
channel.
on a movie set?
Right.
Quiet, please. Hey!
Hey, yeah, kapow! Here's what Pina thinks.
Okay, well, if she's going to participate off
Be a
screen, if
jingle,
I'm
too.
doing the ribs, she has to make her tiramisu.
Oh, wow.
Well, cheers to
Wow.
that.
Cheer-
Ken Hoyt, real estate lawyer. Thank you so much, man.
Thanks,
Hey,
Ken.
a pleasure.
guys, it was great being
Yeah,
here.
good
Thanks
times.
for the invitation.
Yeah.
I've had a blast today. My office is just, they just thought, I got to do a podcast. You're doing a podcast? Really? Really? With who?
But why
Why?
does that surprise them? Because
I don't know.
because you're out there.
I know, but it's more techie, right? Podcast shit.
Right.
And I'm
Right.
And I'm a dinosaur at this point in my life. So,
Well,
well
What is,
what I'm
three
trying to say is
dinosaurs make?
we are collectively, I'm not a tech guy, so they just
No.
thought this was a blast. And I said, and I didn't know whether we were going to be televised, well, not televised, but have it.
we can go live.
Well, I know, but we could. And I said, do you think it just might be audio? Rosemary said, it's just going to be audio, Ken.
No.
He asked me that this morning.
And I said, no, we're being filmed. Oh my gosh, that's incredible.
Yeah.
Anyway, so bit of a.
This was fun.
It was fun. It was
great.
It was great.
You know what? Kurt always keeps it on track.
Do we?
yeah.
I think we have to buy more space on the podcast airwaves now. I don't know.
do you?
No, because I'm the one who does the uploading on it, and we always seem to have 3 or 4 hours.
Technical genius, Ken.
Seriously?
No, but anyway.
Well, I know we've got a green button, red button
Yeah.
issue.
Well, that's just because of lack of eyesight. We have to kind of lean in and go, are we
I still can't
Well,
see
I
it.
can't see a thing.
Oh, I can.
This has been the Broker Loaded podcast.
Yep.
Our guest has been real estate lawyer Ken Hoyt. He's Danny Grimes, broker. I'm Kurt Studley, realtor. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you next time.
See you next week, guys.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye, guys.